first verse, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. We already considered Bereshit. We also looked at the word created, which is the word bara in the Hebrew language. The next term that we considered was the word Elohim. Now, we will continue that journey as we look a little bit closer into the text. Enjoy. The word et here is a marker for the definite direct object of the sentence Hashamayim. So the word Hashamayim here is expressed as a dual. What we have identified from this term, as it is found in the scriptures, is usually has three specific meanings. The sky above us, the place where the planetary bodies are, and also the place where the Almighty dwells. So let's continue here with the next word. Wa'et, again, the same function as the definite direct object. Wa'et ha'aretz. And this then would be the definite article. Again, ha, the aleph cannot take, dagesh. And now we have aretz. Aretz itself could mean both the land and the earth. Some scholars prefer to view this essentially meaning land. I would like to see the word eretz as meaning earth, because utilizing the term land is going to limit exactly what this is referring to in the context of what we are about to read in the next verse. Now, the point I want to make here is that eretz not only refers to the surface of the earth, but it also refers to the oceans as well. It refers to the water. It refers to the Tehom. It refers to the subterranean aspect itself. In other words, it's not only referring to the land in the context of this first verse. In a more refined translation, based off of the understanding of the terms here, we can say, at first, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Some individuals, because the absence of the definite article here at the beginning of Bereshit, there is no definite article here. The bet is not accompanied with the article beneath it as it would usually be indicated. Some would like to see this as in beginning, or when Elohim created the heavens and the earth, as being something of a protasis. And this then would be a parenthetical insertion in thought, and then the apodosis then would come in verse 3. In other words, when Elohim created heaven and earth, he said, let there be light. So the problem with this is, as I would point out in a minute, what is being accomplished here from verses 2 on. And this is why the different translation methods are so critical when it comes to conveying to the reader what is written in the text. We want to make sure, absolutely sure, what the text is saying if we choose to follow a specific line of translation. So let's go to the next verse then. Wa'aretz. So the last word of the previous verse was ha'aretz. Verse 2 continues the thought that was first made in the first statement. And ha'aretz hayata. The word here, ha'aretz, is now followed by the verb of existence in the perfect tense, which is a past tense, which can be translated, as I mentioned before when we did the rough translation, either was, a simple past, or had become, which is a pluperfect past. Now, the state that is then described is tohu wavohu. So tohu wavohu implies a waste and a desolation. The word tohu itself could either mean waste, or it could also mean vain or vanity or nothingness. Vohu is similarly attributed, as these terms are used in pairs to express utter desolation or waste. So what do we see here then is either was or became. And I'm going to come back to that just now because I have something to say about that. So we continue with choshech. The word choshech here, and choshech of course means darkness, was al panei tehom. Al panei tehom. So this word al here, this is the preposition which could mean upon or over as well, or it could also mean against as well in the negative sense. And then this word here that follows, panei, is actually from the word panim, which means face. Faces is plural. It's always plural, faces. And it means the surface of tehom. So what is this tehom that we see described here? Well, this word tehom means an abyss or a depth of some kind. Okay, so again, remember, haaretz or earth not only refers to the surface of the earth, but also below it as well, the depth, the subterranean, primordial deep as well. Now, that ends this first clause, and then we have the other clause, Waruach Elohim. Again, Elohim, as I mentioned before, is the creating entity. So Waruach Elohim here is the spirit of Elohim. Again, the Trinitarian teaching is not upheld either by the term Elohim or by the notices or descriptions of the Ruach Elohim as it is seen here in the scriptures. The Ruach Elohim is something that is associated with the Father. It comes forth from the Father. It's a might and power that the Father sends and he gives to whomever he will. And the activities of the Spirit are varied. Okay, in this context here, the Spirit of Elohim is that power that comes from the Almighty. So Ruach Elohim merachefet, basically the Spirit of Elohim, merachefet is the word there. Rachaf can mean either like flutter or to brood or to hover or to be relaxed. So the Ruach Elohim merachefet, by the way, this verb is in the participial form, brooding or hovering. And then you have al panei hamayim. Genesis 2 states, Waha'aretz hayata tohu wavohu. Now we remember this verse, Genesis 1:2, is alluded to in other places in Scripture. One of the cross references to this specific verse, especially the word tohu, is in Isaiah 45:18, where the prophet mentions that Yahweh is the one who created the earth and Elohim formed it. He created it, not tohu, he formed it. In other words, he created it to be inhabited. Now, so what does that imply? Well, some individuals would simply say, well, he didn't create it to remain tohu, but he created it to be inhabited. But the second thing I would point out is we have another cross reference to the creation of the earth or the foundation of the world. And that is in Job chapter 38, where Yahweh asks Job, where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth, or when I founded, or in my founding of the earth? Job is asked if he was there when the morning stars raised their voices and the sons of Elohim shouted. In other words, the host of heaven were there at the foundations of the earth. Now, this is a critical point because the statement that we see in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 is in the beginning, Elohim created Hashamayim wa ha'aretz, the heavens and the earth. So the idea here is that the hosts of Elohim, the sons of Elohim, which are the angels, were present at the foundation of the earth. Job was not there because Job was created as a man, as Adam. Okay? And this would now become, and the earth had become a waste and a desolation, and darkness was upon the surface of Tehom. And then we are now beginning a process where Elohim begins to evaluate a state after an event occurred, which we're not privy to what exactly that is, as I explain the next verse, which is verse 3.